Hi friends, I hope you're doing well. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And if you're not new, welcome back. In the last video, we talked about planning and how some people might not feel comfortable diving into a spontaneous landscape painting. And I'll post a link to that video down below. Today, we'll take that plan or study and use that as a roadmap to make a finished painting. But before we get started, go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell. But most importantly, share it with someone who you think might benefit from these fundamentals. Go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd be happy to hear from you. I'm Kendall Stump, and welcome to the Stump Project. All right, let's jump right in and get started. This should be pretty cool. No pun intended. All right, so the colors, let's start with that. In the background, I'm wanting to have kind of a warm hue coming in probably through here. Not too warm. This is going to be a very light and cold painting, so I don't want the warmness to kind of overtake that. So I'm going to leave this very pale, but it's still going to have a yellowish hue through the horizon and through the background sky. And that's probably going to show up a little bit in some of the shadows and some of the snow in the foreground. So the colors are going to be, we're going to have a little bit of Indian yellow, some yellow ochre. This is Paynes gray, a lot of titanium white, and this mess right here is what's left over of liquid white. So what I did, I put a coat of liquin, this stuff right here. I covered the entire canvas, nice thin even coat. And then where I want the sky to be, right up here, I put liquid white. This is Bob Ross's liquid white. You can get something similar from Bill Alexander, magic white. Essentially what this is, it's titanium white that has a mixture of linseed oil, odorless mineral spirits, and thinned it down. I already had some on hand, and obviously this works very well. So I put that on here. The reason why I put the liquin down is because liquin helps speed up the drying time of the paint. It's very important. Because magic white or liquid white or whatever that you use dries super slow, as well as the titanium white is one of the slower drying paints. So having liquid down on your canvas is really going to help solidify and cure this paint in a little bit faster fashion. Especially, like I said, the magic white, which I put on there, it's going to help speed up that drying time. And instead of taking 4 to 6 weeks for it to dry, it should be dry within a week. So once you get your liquid white on here, you can tell if you have enough on here by doing the touch test. So you just tap your finger, and if you can see your fingerprint through there, which I can, then you have just the right amount. If you have too much, just take your brush, a clean brush, and go over it, the whole thing, wherever you have it, and then try it again. That brush will lift off some of the extra, and you should be left with just the right amount. So I'm going to be using this brush here. It's just an old hardware brush. Looks like I may need some new ones soon, but they're really cheap and inexpensive, and I like these brushes because it allows you to add so much more texture to your paintings, and you'll see that as we go along. I'm going to be doing some stuff today that I haven't tried with these brushes yet, but we'll see what happens. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the Indian yellow. I'm going to grab a little bit of the yellow ochre and a little bit of the titanium white. I don't necessarily need too much of that because I've got the liquid white on the canvas already, and this is going to help, the liquid white is going to really help blend this. So, all right, let me take a step back here. Let me kind of draw in what we're going to be doing. We did a plan for this painting in our last video, and I'll put a link to that down below. So we're going to try and do that, recreate that. But what I ultimately want to do, let me just sketch in for you so you have an idea. Let's see, we'll divide our canvas into thirds, first of all. So remember, there's thirds. So the horizon is generally a rule of thumb to kind of keep on that third. This particular painting has got a hill in it, so even though the third is right here, I'm going to come up a little bit above that, and then it's going to come probably a little below that, probably down to here. Just sketching in something like that. That's what the horizon is going to look like as we come into the foreground, because if you imagine perspective, kind of demonstrating like this, maybe the vanishing point is somewhere running here, so the perspective lines would probably be something more akin to this, right? We'll put in, we're going to put in a huge tree trunk in here. We'll have a pine tree of some fashion through here, and then a bunch of other trees here. Now, that just might look like a whole lot of scribbles, and you're not too far off. It really kind of is. But what it's doing is going to give me the opportunity to visualize where I need my color. So again, I wanted a nice light and glow. This is probably even still too dark. I'm going to go into more titanium white here. I just want a faint glow. Here we go. That's better. And we'll start, this is the most colorful area right here, and we'll just work out from there. I want that liquid white to pick up and to blend this out. So the more I go up, the lighter it's going to get. Now that seems a little bit counterintuitive from what we normally know. We normally understand that the closer that you get to the horizon, the lighter that it gets. In this specific case, I want that glow to be right here, and I want it to lighten as I go up. Now, over here it's going to be a little bit different, because I want this to feel like it's further away as we look through the trees. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to lighten this area up even more than this area right here. You know, all that liquid white is still here on the canvas. So it's allowing me to go ahead and blend a lot of that color that's on my brush, the stuff that I'm moving around. And if there's a little bit of a variation in color, I don't want it to be a flat color all the way around. I don't want that. Let there be some wispy bits in there. And a lot of this stuff's going to get covered up with foliage anyway. We just want stuff to be able to be poking through every now and again. And then we can let the corners be a little bit darker here. Just a little bit, we don't need much. We would like to be able to use this as a sort of a vignette to kind of draw the eye back into the painting. And we'll just blend out the sketch marks that we put in here already. And down here, I'm just putting in some color, and I'm going to mirror this out. This is ultimately going to become shadow. Kind of just wiping off my brush, honestly. Is just use the flat part. Just put your brush right up against there, go side to side. The paint's going to come off the canvas. I'm using my the painting that I did. I took a photo of it just so I can have it sitting on the side. I'm using this as my point of reference. I'm looking at it a lot while I'm painting to let me know where I need the shadows to be and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just putting in these shadows. They're just warm shadows for the time being. It may change, and they're not going to be exactly where they are in the painting. I'm just kind of just putting. We'll experiment a little bit. We'll just put a little bit more white in here. And all this is about experimentation, right? This is about doing getting outside of your comfort zone, doing something new. There, that's kind of a nice little wispy sky, little warm winter sky. Okay, so now I'm going to start working on some of those background elements. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the Paynes gray and some yellow ochre, and I'm going to, so I've got my yellow ochre, I'm going to dilute that. Yellow ochre, Paynes gray, we'll get enough Paynes gray to make this look just a hint of yellow ochre. Something lighter than that. Because this is going to be distance. This is what I'm working on here. I'm going to be producing some distance. Okay. Because I want it to, the things in the distance, remember we've talked, the farther you go away from the viewer, the more it takes, your objects or your scenery takes on the color of the environment. So I'm using that yellow ochre, the same yellow ochre, Indian yellow that I used to develop the sky, and I mix it up with a little bit of Paynes gray so to kind of bring on that same hue. So I'm just using a round. This is a number 4 from Rosemary & Co. pointed round, and I'm just going to start painting in some background elements. Just some tree trunks, just like that. Just need some lines here and there, various sizes. I'm holding my brush up like this, and I'm just dragging it. I'm letting it kind of wiggle and do its thing. I'm turning it. I'm turning it as I go. Make sure that the paint on it stays relevant. And I'm just kind of filling up the background, at least for right now, with some hints or indications of tree trunks. And this may change as we go along here. I plan on putting some other kinds of stuff in here. We may end up painting over a bunch of this, which I'm almost positive that we will. But in the meantime, at least I'm getting something on canvas that's letting me kind of get a clearer visualization of what's going on. And just something rough like that. Here's the number 6 flat. I just want different shapes of color at this point. So I'm going to come in here. These are going to be trees back here. So I'm just kind of, and they're going to be way off in the distance. Now you're like, that doesn't look like a tree. Well, things in the background tend to be a little bit more blurry and obscure. So we're going to give these a little work over once I get all the shapes in. I'm just putting in shapes at this point. What does some of this stuff look like? And you could use the bigger brush, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll go in and use some of the bigger brush for some of this stuff, just to kind of see. Again, I haven't done this kind of thing. I'm a spontaneous landscape painter for sure. I mean, I've done some master copies every now and again, but for the most part, I enjoy just kind of going in and seeing what can happen. I enjoy seeing what can happen if you just go at it. Let's see, we want some trees off here in the background. As you can see, my palette's getting it's getting a little messy, but that's okay. I can always add more fresh paint to it if I need to. Not that big of a deal. Putting some color down here and texture. Some of this texture will probably remain, and you've probably seen Bob Ross do something very, very similar. As he goes in with his brush, and we'll just tap, tap, tap. And it's very similar to what we're going to ultimately be doing. The more that Bob would tap with his brush, the more that his paints and his shapes get blended. We're going to be doing something very similar. Just pushing up. Let things be happening this is all going to be way off in the background. All right, now what I want to do, I've got a number 2 natural bristle brush. This is very soft. This is from the Bob Ross collection. I really like this brush. I haven't found another brush that's really going to blend the way that this does, and I just want to blur some of this stuff out. This is just a hint of a background. So you wipe a bit, and then you're going to get some residue on your brush. Just take the paper towel and just wipe that off. You're almost treating these as clouds. You created some shapes, and you want those shapes to remain. So don't blend them completely out. You're just going very, very softly. Very softly. Wipe off your brush. And this is becoming your background. This right here is probably a little bit too dark for me. I will add some titanium white to this. So you can see just by looking at this, by just using this technique of just putting color up there and keeping in mind a perspective and a vanishing point, you can see easily how we just made clouds. On a nice sunset, maybe right here, it's a hill that you're on, all the clouds are coming, they're passing over behind the hill, beautiful sky, nice clouds being illuminated through the sun color. So use this technique not just for painting things that are far away and distant, but you can use this technique for painting clouds too. It looks really nice. All right, so twist your towel into a nice taper. I want to put in some far away tree trunks that may be a little bit more distinguishable. See that? And then now you have paint on your taper. So turn it, find another one, another spot on there, and do it again. Another option may be to use a flat brush, and maybe you just draw a line down sideways, just like that. So you can see the difference. You can see the difference in the two types of lines. And this is what a line would look like if you dipped it into some mineral spirits before you did it. Wipe off your brush in between strokes. Now, the further away these trees are, the more dense they're going to look, because you can see more of them. And then the closer that they get to you, the the more spread out they're going to be, because obviously in your field of vision, you'll see less of them. I hope you've been liking these videos, and if you have, I hope that you take some time and subscribe. I really appreciate the support that you guys give. And then while we're at this, still working on the background, I'm going to create that taper again. And I'm going to put in some, I don't know, maybe they're saplings. Some hints of trees way off in the distance. And I'm just whipping the canvas, just letting these things, because trees don't necessarily all grow straight. They'll grow at angles or what have you. So I'm trying to capture some of that detail. And sometimes you have branches that grow off. I'm just going to try to get, this is a little bit wider brush, 3 inches. Again, one of those hardware store brushes. I want to push the brush against the paint. So just push up. I'm going to scrape the paint away. And then as you do this, if you can see, you get a little bit of a residue paint on your brush. Keep that off there, because you're not trying to transplant paint at this point. You're just trying to put in some of those finer details. This is going to ghost out some of that background image again, similar to what you did before, but not to that extent. You're just trying to put in some of those little extra fine details. So then as we get closer, we're going to start using a little bit darker paint as we go. So we're going to paint out the bottoms of some of these. Again, we're just over this hill right here. We're going to start painting out some of the bottoms of these things. And we're going to have this shrubbery kind of stay a little bit level. I am going to imply it as it's growing up the hill, just to kind of give me a little bit of consistency as I go up, just kind of define the edge of that hill a little bit. I'm just using the edge of the brush on the canvas. I'm pushing up. So just put it up there and just push up. And you can get some like little tufts of grass, just lift up. Don't worry about the bottom edge. The bottom edge, that'll go away. That'll get blended. That will get blended out when we start doing the foreground area. Try to work from back to front, top to bottom, back to front. It means that way you won't have to paint around so much stuff, and it'll just be a more pleasant experience for you. When you get to the edges of your painting, try to get a little bit darker. We want to be able to draw the eye back in. We'll just take our paper towel, like so, and we're just going to dab lightly. The light source is going to be over here. This is going to be the brightest part. Everything else is kind of shrouded with trees, kind of clustered with trees. So you take your towel and you can just dab on the side of the object that you're wanting to highlight, and it removes some of the paint. See? This works best with higher contrasting paint. So the darker the paint, the more this is going to react. Maybe there's just a little bit of shadow right there. Okay. Okay, so now this is a rigger brush. This one specifically is number 4 from the Evergreen collection from Rosemary & Co. The rigger brushes, they have a really long, narrow bristle, and they hold a lot of paint. They were originally named for rigger brushes because I believe that they used to paint rigging on ships. So they got their name. Some people call them scripting brushes, other liner brushes, all the same thing. So when I put it on there, I just kind of drug it up, let the bottom wiggle as I wanted to, and I'm turning it as I go. It's just going to give some flavor to that, to that organicness of the tree. Let your trees crisscross. And when you go out into the woods and you start looking at different things, they pass behind each other. You just have to just let trees be trees, you know. Don't think that they all stand up, stick straight, and are perfect. They're not. Some of them, maybe some of them lived really hard lives. We'll go and put some more detail on some of these things as we build on these things in layers. Let's see. I know that these videos can be kind of long sometimes, but there's so much information, and what I'm trying to do is take you step by step through the entire process. I don't want you to think that, oh, there was a cut in the video, and so I did something that I'm just not demonstrating, or I'm not showing, or how did you get to this point? You didn't show that. Or maybe you feel like you missed something, and I don't want that to be the case. I want to show you step by step as I go through this process, and it's also demonstrating that it doesn't take that long to put these pieces together either. It helps if you have a shaky hand as you put these things down. As you see, my brush is just kind of wiggling doing this thing. Sometimes it's just me. It's I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just if you try too hard to keep something straight and steady, you end up making it worse. And we're going to be covering a lot of this stuff up here towards the top. So that's why I'm just kind of putting in some trunks that may be closer to the foreground or the midground area, and I'm not worried too much about the detail that the trunks are giving. Okay, so I'm going to set some of these trees down. So I'm just using my brush, the flat of the brush, and just pulling to the side. Again, the light source is here, so I want the shadows to kind of be going out. Like, it gives us a little bit more of a path. Now, let's put in some of this stuff up here towards the top. I'm going to use a fan brush. This is a fan brush. If you don't know, this happens to be a number 6 fan brush. The sizes themselves are generally pretty consistent. This one is from the Rosemary & Co. Bob Ross's size number 6, or Winsor Newton size number 6. They're all pretty consistent. And I'm just dabbing and twisting my brush, not covering up the entire trunk of that tree. I want to let obviously some of the trunks show through, I just want to demonstrate the idea that there is smaller branches and stuff coming out on top of that. Or maybe there's plants and foliage. You just twist your brush and you'll see you create different kinds of shapes. Maybe it looks like plants they're sticking up there. I mean, I know this is a winter scene, but plants grow in the wintertime. And this is still kind of the background. We're going to be putting more trees, some bigger trees here in front. And I'm just mixing in with the remnants of my Indian yellow and my yellow ochre. Now we're going to start working on some of the trees and stuff that are more in the foreground. I'm taking my fan brush. I've got that linseed oil, odorless mineral spirits mixture. I dip my brush in there just a little bit. I want to thin this out, and the main reason is because a thinner paint will stick to a thicker paint. So you see this brush loaded. I want a nice tree to come right down here. I want to intersect this open area. It's going to create some nice contrast. So I'm just going to go right in, just nice big bold tree right there. Help out the shadow just a little bit. There's another tree right here. We've got a pine tree. We'll put in. That pine tree it cuts right across, something like that. And then just using the corner of the brush, and we will be able to highlight this. We'll highlight that as it'll pull it off the background a little bit, so you'll be able to tell the difference between that and the tree behind it. Maybe we want another pine tree, a smaller one. Maybe we want it here. I'm going to use some. I'm going to add some Van Dyke brown to this, just because I want to help darken it up a little bit. As we get more towards the foreground. We'll just zigzag back and forth, pulling down a little bit. again, we'll go through and highlight these a little bit on the side that's closest to the or facing the light source, and right up here. Just make that tree trunk that was there as part of that pine tree. I'm adding a little bit more yellow ochre to my palette, not too much. And some liquid white. You see I added some liquid white right over here. A thin paint will stick to a thick paint. So the paint that we got out there is pretty thick. I mean, it was diluted down to a little bit of odorous mineral spirits and some linseed oil. But this will help this paint, the highlights, stick to that paint that's there. I'm just using the corner of my brush until I get further down. And as I get further down, I'll use more and more of the side of the brush. Paying attention to the light source, or where that may be. So keep it stronger towards the side, and then as you transition around the tree, you can have some light over there, but you want it to be much darker on that side. Just pay attention to where you're putting them. You want to be able to put enough on there that you're going to pull off, separate the foreground from the background. At the same time, you want to don't put so much on there that it doesn't look right. It'll throw the viewer off. Just enough to insinuate highlights. See where we're breaking the tree trunk here it's in front of, just letting it sit in front of it. Wiping off my brush a little bit before I go back into my paint. I feel like I need some more dark up here, and we'll put some more detail into that here in a moment, before we get too far into the foreground here. Let's take let's blend this out a little bit, just soften it. We want the background to be nice and soft. And then we can I'm just making crisscross strokes, wiping off my brush, using the side of my brush, crisscross strokes, lifting some of that paint, putting shape and implying detail. And then I'll put some dark, scratch it in there. trying to get darker towards the top of the canvas. In contrast to the sky, where the sky is lighter at the top of the canvas and they kind of get a little bit darker value as we go down. I'm trying to make sure that the foreground, the foliage is a little bit darker. It just adds that contrast. And then I'm going to go in and add a little bit of detail with some towel. Just put in some additional texture so that it doesn't look like blotches of paint. Make a nice taper. Come up here for some more detail. It's just all about building in layers and implied detail. You can blot over some of that to kind of push some of those back and blend those in. Texture on the tree trunks, especially this guy right here. Again, I'm going to make another taper, just like this. And I'm going to draw this right up that trunk. And just let the grooves on the taper imply that detail. Pushing a little bit harder on the side that's closest to the light source, or facing the light source. And then you can also, as you're doing this, just come up off to the side and just start doing some branches. I normally don't like to do this. I don't like to use just black out of the tube. But in this case, I've got it. I was like, why not? So I'm just going to put it in, mix it in with the Van Dyke Brown Paynes gray that I already had there. And I may not use this. So this looks like, just on the palette, it just looks like it's got a little bit more red in it than I want. But we'll see. We can always glaze over this later. What I'm trying to do now is I want to put in some foliage for this tree. There's some branches and such. Yeah, it's a little, see what happens if we add some yellow ochre to that. No, it's just kidding. All right, so that obviously that black is not the black that I wanted. I'm going to mix my own. I don't want that purpley red black junk. So I took some Prussian blue, some burnt sienna, and just a little bit of the Prussian blue into the burnt sienna and make a nice neutral black here. I don't need a lot. Let me see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so what I want to do, I want to take it off. So you make mistakes, easy to fix. Get rid of that red. I don't know, you probably see it looks purpley up there on the screen. There we go. It's more brown color now. So it's what I want. Maybe we'll put some more of that in here as we establish the foreground a little bit. This will get blended in with some white. I'm just kind of putting in some dark at the moment. So we can bring some of that black that we mixed. Just using my paper towel like a stamp, transplanting some of that paint. Just putting the glop up there, just to give me something to work with. Adding a little bit more deepness in the shadow. Just layer some of this stuff on there and just let it happen. Wherever it goes, it goes. And we can add some more detail to the background in glazing once this stuff starts to set up, and we can paint over it without disrupting everything else. We can go in and put additional shapes, and I think that's what we're going to do. It'll look nice. Okay, so now we're at a really good spot. So let's go ahead and start adding some snow. So I'm using my palette knife. This is a regular palette knife. Loading up the back of it with some paint, and I'm going to, starting at the base of this tree, I'm going to scrub a little bit. I want it to kind of mix with the paint that's on the canvas. I don't want it to be just white. And hopefully it will pull some shadow down too. And if not, we can always put some back in. And you're also looking to define a little bit more, perhaps the lay of the land. So we're going to take this right up to that edge where we wanted the horizon to be. We're going to let that mix just a little bit with that yellow white that we had up there, and let that become bright and let that make sense. We're just going to mix it right there. You get a nice soft shadow, and then you can diffuse that however it makes sense for you to diffuse it. Don't worry about painting over some things. I mean, we can put them back. It's not that big of a deal, really. There wasn't a whole lot of effort putting into. That's why we work from top to bottom. We know that this is all shadow in here, so let's. I'm trying to keep my knife edge, this top edge of the knife right here, I'm trying to keep it fairly level. Similar to what you would do with water. I think it's just going to help. It's just going to help identify the lay of the land as we come down, we come closer, and as we do that too, you can think in terms of perspective. The further things are back, these lines or these detail lines we may etch in are going to be closer together because it's further back. As we come closer to the viewer, these things will become broader and farther apart. Something to keep in mind. I want to keep. Sorry if I was leaning in there a little bit. I didn't mean to. I did not mean to get all up in the shot there. Just troweling this on, and really at this point, like I said, the lines can get much farther apart the closer you get to the bottom or the viewer. Putting a little bit, you'll see what this is for here in a second. I want to add a little bit of contrast to separate the sky and the ground right there. So I'm putting this in. This is going to be turned into shrubbery here in just a moment. So I like the idea of this painting. I like the direction that it's going. This is definitely a work in progress. It's kind of been in its ugly phase for a little while now. I am definitely going to glaze this further once it starts to dry. I may do it a little early, not a full glaze, but I may add to it while it's still a little damp, just in case just in case I need to blend a little bit more with the paint that's already there. But there's obviously some things that are wrong with it that need to be addressed, and that's quite all right. All right, we're just going to take our brush and we're going to lift, and we're going to produce some grass here and there. Just lift, lift. Wipe off your brush every now and again. You can put in as much or as little as you like. This is a great technique, almost like a dry brush technique. Just wipe off your brush. George Ennis, he's a great tonalist painter. He's used this technique in some of his paintings. I think it's really, really cool. And just push it up. Just I'm not even using a lot of pressure. Just scraping it up in an upward motion, and it's going to give, like you see right here, it gives a great illusion of grass and weeds kind of just poking up through. Using the paint that's already there, so you don't have to do anything special to it. Just let it be organic. Put it in where you want it. I'm just dipping right back into that black that I mixed with the burnt sienna and Prussian blue. And you can fix up any old pieces that you need to. Now, am I going to call this painting a success? I don't know. I'm going to reserve my judgment until we get our glaze on there, I may decide that once this is all dry, I may determine to deepen some areas, darken some of these foreground areas, push back some of the background areas a little bit more, maybe add some details here and there. Just using my knife and just kind of cutting in some sticks and twigs and wherever they may be. And we'll call that good for now. So this painting has a ways to go before I'm happy with it, and I'll show you what I did in a future video. But I'm sure you can see having something to put your vision into focus can be very beneficial and go a long way in helping you tell your visual story. Remember, your studies are not meant to be reproduced exactly. They're to be a guide to show you how you might build your final piece. I hope you enjoyed the ideas we went over and that you use this information to create something awesome. You can find inspiration anywhere. Don't be afraid to look. So like this video, subscribe to this channel, and check out my other videos. I'll see you next time.